Joining me now is Ross Orr. He is the president and CEO of BacTech Environmental. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Now, let's start with a very catchy slogan, "Our bugs eat rocks," which essentially means that you have this proprietary technology to remediate toxic tailings and concentrates from abandoned mining operations. So give us an overview.
Okay, so not necessarily abandoned mining operations, because in Ecuador, we're actually buying concentrates from miners.
Okay.
That is going to China today, heavily penalized because of the arsenic content. And so our bacteria, when they technically are eating rocks, or they're breaking apart sulfide mineralization, arsenic is released. And as a byproduct of bioleaching, we produce a ferric arsenate, which is a US EPA landfillable material. So it's a backhanded way of becoming of green processing, really.
Okay, very good. Now, 4 projects. The most advanced is in Ecuador, where you struck this agreement with the government. And maybe you can explain that, because that's close to $100 million.
Yeah, the commitment on our part was $100 million in total. The first phase is going to be about 20 million, and it will produce about 50 tons of concentrate a day, roughly about 100 ounces of gold per day. The second phase is much larger, and for that they gave us a 12-year tax holiday, which is nice. Our margins are terrific to begin with, so payback on everything that we borrow is going to be relatively quick. We're on the 1 yard line right now in Ecuador. We've just got one permit left to get, which is the consultation, and we're waiting on the government to come out with the new rules as to what that, what that's going to look like, and a little matter of $20 million to
right.
that we're raising.
Which you're working on through green bonds. So explain why you're going that route.
Well, I was just explaining earlier, if you buy a house, the bank will lend you the money, and if you don't pay, they take the house back. When you have a bioleach plant, I don't think the lender is going to want a bioleach plant if things don't work out. So we went the unconventional route, which is the green bond market, which tends to overlook this whole idea of having a lack of security for loans, because the idea behind green bonds is to enhance new technologies for environmental remediation and just technologies for the industry. So we're going through the process now of amassing all of the data and everything that has to be put together, and then we'll submit it to, say, a Moody's or somebody to get the divine intervention that we need to issue those bonds.
Right, to get rated.
Correct.
Exactly. Okay. So let's move to Sudbury in Ontario, where you're working on a pilot project, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working very closely with Dr. Nadia Mikacek, who's well known in Canada as probably the preeminent bioleach academic in the country, and she's on our advisory board. People don't realize in Sudbury that there are lakes that have been filled up over the years with concentrate called pyrrhotite, which is a sulfide mineral. And the reason it's in lakes is because it's very volatile. It'll combust if it's left out in the open. We did pyrrhotite bioleaching, 22 years ago in Australia. The technology didn't exist at the time to get the metals out of solution that we put into solution. It now exists. So what we're going to do is go back and say, the 4 pieces of pyrrhotite, can we sell those things individually? And so the sum of the 4 is worth more than the whole, so to speak. And of course, clean up the lakes at the same time. So nickel cobalt precipitate, sulfur for the sulfuric acid industry, and iron. There's going to be about 60 million tons of iron that comes out of this. Now, can that be reconstituted into steel or into batteries? That's what the R&D is all about.
That's quite a visual. Those lakes that you're talking about. Now, part of your mission is healing the planet, and which is a big goal, big mission. But it seems like you're well positioned in the current environment as we're looking to get greener in all aspects. So, what are the opportunities there? Do you think, in a general sense, and what are the challenges that do you face?
I think ours is very easy to identify. Like in Ecuador, miners have been using mercury and cyanide outside of the normal realms that of an existing mine. So what we've said to the miners is, if any of this material that you're going to sell us is pre-treated with either of those 2 things, we're not going to buy it. So we're forcing them into cleaning up their act, so to speak. The hard part, of course, with a company our size, and we are micro cap, is getting that first project done. Because I like to make the analogy that this is like dominoes, except the first one somebody glued it, and we keep thwacking it, and it's starting to it's starting to weaken. But as soon as that first one falls over, then we go into the expansion mode for the next one, and then there's Peru and there's Colombia. We're the only nuts that go chasing arsenic out there. So it's a big market for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So keep going. Yeah.
No, it's proof of concept, right? I mean, now the nice thing is that we've actually built 3 plants for other people in the past, but we were giving them all the value. And so now we're saying, no, we're going to be greedy. We're going to keep the value for ourselves and create our own plant and operate it, and hopefully, make a lot of money for our shareholders.
Right. Now, lastly, Ross, you go to conferences like the one we're at now. What are the questions that you get, and what kind of feedback do you get? And like, how is it you want to push buttons and open doors eventually to get to where you want to go?
Have you raised the money yet? That's really the question, because it's really the only outstanding issue right now. And again, from a lender's point of view, I can see why they're hesitant to do it. Even the royalty company can buy a royalty, from a mining or sell a royalty to a mining company. At the end of the day, they can just take the property, because even if it's only got 200,000 ounces, there's value in there. So one of the things that I'm considering doing is maybe becoming more vertically integrated by maybe going out and acquiring tailings for our own account, so that we're actually feeding our own materials. So it's obviously a secure source. I don't want to do that until we get the green bond done and everything, but that's something that we're going to start looking at, I think.
That would be an interesting step.
Yeah, no, it would.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the insight and telling us more about your company.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Ross. Ross Orr, President and CEO at BacTech Environmental.